What if your back pain every morning isn't actually about your back? I know, that sounds a little backwards, but stay with me. Because if you're waking up stiff, achy, or just tight in your lower back every single day, and you've kind of accepted that as just part of getting older, I want to challenge that assumption. Because in most cases, it's not inevitable. And more importantly, it's not random. So in this video, we're going to break down the why behind morning back pain, what's actually happening in your spine while you sleep, and some practical things you can start doing, some as early as tomorrow morning, that make a real difference. Okay, so let's talk about what's actually going on. Your spine, it's not just bone and muscle. Running through the middle of it are these things called intervertebral discs. Think of them like little shock absorbers between each vertebra. They're mostly made of water. And here's something most people don't realize. Those discs actually rehydrate while you sleep. When you're upright during the day, gravity compresses them. They lose fluid. But at night, lying down, the pressure comes off and they absorb moisture back in. Which sounds great, right? And it is. But there's a catch. Because those discs are slightly more swollen in the morning than they are at any other point in the day, your spine is actually a little stiffer, a little less flexible right when you wake up. Your muscles and ligaments haven't warmed up yet either. Everything is just tighter. Now add to that whatever position you slept in for the last 7 or 8 hours. If your spine wasn't well supported, or if you've got any underlying stiffness or weakness in the muscles that support your lower back, that morning window becomes the perfect storm. And this is where it gets important, because a lot of people feel that morning pain and think, okay, my back is just bad, this is my life now, and they move on. But what they're actually feeling is a warning signal, their body telling them something about their spine health, their sleep setup, their movement habits. That's worth paying attention to. Research actually backs this up. There was a study, the Back Complaints in the Older Adults study, which followed several hundred patients, and they found that people with moderate morning spinal stiffness were nearly 3 times more likely to show signs of disc degeneration. 3 times. That's not a small signal. That's your body waving a flag. So if that sounds like you, stiff when you wake up, but it loosens up once you get moving, that's actually useful information. It tells us a lot about what's going on and what to do about it. So now that you know what's going on, let's talk about what to actually do about it. And the first place to start is actually the most obvious one, your sleep position. Now, I know what you're thinking. I've been sleeping the same way my whole life. This can't be that big a deal. But stay with me here, because this matters more than most people realize. There was actually a systematic review published in PubMed. They looked at 6 different studies on sleep posture and lower back pain, and what they found was pretty clear. Sleeping on your back or your side, with proper support, was consistently associated with less back pain. Stomach sleeping? That was the worst position by a significant margin. Because when you sleep on your stomach, you're flattening out the natural curve of your spine and forcing your neck to rotate for hours at a time. Your lower back muscles are working all night when they should be resting. Now here's the part most people miss. It's not just about which position, it's about what you do within that position. If you're a back sleeper, try this tonight. Put a pillow under your knees. Not behind your head, under your knees. What that does is takes about 50 pounds of pressure off your lumbar spine. 50 pounds. That's like someone sitting on your lower back all night, and the pillow removes them. If you sleep on your side, a pillow between your knees does something similar. It keeps your hips stacked and stops your upper leg from pulling your spine into a twist. It sounds almost too simple, but the difference people feel is real. I see this all the time. Someone's been dealing with morning back pain for years. They've tried everything, and then they make this one small change. One pillow, different position, and within a week, they're waking up noticeably better. It doesn't fix everything, but it removes one of the triggers that's been stacking up against them every single night. Now the second thing, and this one you do before you even get out of bed. Most people wake up, feel the stiffness, and just power through it. They swing their legs over the side and haul themselves upright. And that sudden movement on a spine that's still stiff and swollen from sleep is actually one of the worst things you can do. Instead, try this. Before you sit up, while you're still lying on your back, bring both knees up to your chest. Hold for about 10 seconds. Then gently let your knees drop to one side, hold, and switch. Just that. 2 minutes, still in bed, before you even think about standing up. What you're doing is easing your discs and joints back into movement gradually. You're warming the spine up the same way you'd warm up before exercise. And a 2021 meta-analysis on home-based exercise programs found that this kind of gentle trunk and pelvic movement in the morning was highly effective at reducing both pain intensity and stiffness. People who did it consistently reported significantly better function throughout the day. That's not a small finding. That's your 2 minutes of lying in bed actually doing something useful. This brings me to the thing that is probably the biggest driver of chronic morning back pain in people over 40. And it's one that almost nobody talks about in the context of morning specifically. Your core. And I don't mean your abs in the way people think about them at the gym. I'm talking about the deep muscles that wrap around your spine, the ones that are supposed to hold everything stable while you move, sit, stand, sleep. When those muscles are weak, your lower back has to pick up the slack. It's compensating every single day. And at night, when everything relaxes and those muscles switch off completely, your spine is essentially unsupported for 7 or 8 hours straight. That's why you wake up in pain. Now here's what the research actually says on this. A systematic review published in the International Journal of Sports Physical Therapy looked at 5 clinical trials on core stabilization exercises and chronic lower back pain. And across every single one of those studies, all 5, patients who did core stabilization work reported lower pain levels, better function, and improved spinal stability. Every one. That's not a mixed result, that's a consistent signal. And the good news is you don't need to be doing intense workouts. We're talking about specific, low-load movements, things like dead bugs, pelvic tilts, gentle bridges, movements that train the deep stabilizing muscles without putting stress on the spine itself. 10 minutes, 3 or 4 times a week. That's the level of input that makes a real difference. But here's where I want to be straight with you for a second, because this is the part that matters most. A lot of people feel this morning pain. They manage it, they get through the day, it eases up, and they figure that's just how it is now. They adapt their life around it. They stop doing the morning walk. They skip the golf trip. They tell themselves they'll deal with it properly later when things slow down. And I understand that. I really do. Life is busy. The pain isn't stopping you completely, so it doesn't feel urgent enough to act on. But here's what I've seen happen. 5 years down the road, 10 years down the road, when the disc degeneration that started as morning stiffness has progressed. When the muscles that were weak have gotten weaker because you've been moving less to protect yourself. When what used to be a 20-minute ache has become all-day pain that limits everything. I've talked to people who can't play with their grandkids on the floor anymore, who can't travel, who can't do a full day of work without being wrecked by the afternoon. And they all say the same thing. I wish I'd taken it seriously earlier. The warning signs were there. The morning back pain was the warning sign. It doesn't have to go that way. Not even close, but it will, gradually, quietly, if you keep treating this as something to manage rather than something to fix. That's why we're having this conversation right now. So with that in mind, let's talk about the last piece of the puzzle. And this one's practical, maybe a little uncomfortable, but worth saying. Your mattress might be the problem. I know, nobody wants to think about it. But if you've had the same mattress for 8, 10, 12 years, it's not doing what it did when you bought it. The materials have broken down, the support is gone, and every single night your spine is sinking into a surface that's working against it. Here's what the research actually says on this. There was a randomized controlled trial published in The Lancet. 313 adults with chronic lower back pain, split into 2 groups. One group slept on firm mattresses, the other on medium firm. Same people, same pain history, just different sleep surfaces. At 90 days, the medium firm group had significantly better outcomes. Less pain on rising, less pain while lying in bed, and less disability overall. And here's the thing that surprised most people about that study. It actually challenged the old conventional wisdom that firmer is always better for your back. It's not. Medium firm is the sweet spot for most people. So if you're lying on something that's either rock hard or sagging in the middle, that's a variable worth looking at. It's not glamorous advice, but it matters. Okay, so let's pull this all together. Morning back pain is not a mystery. It's not just aging, and it's not something you have to live with. It's a signal, from your discs, your muscles, your sleep setup, that something needs attention. And the good news is, the things that make the biggest difference are not complicated. Your sleep position and how you support it. 2 minutes of gentle movement before you get out of bed. Consistent work on the deep muscles that are supposed to be holding your spine stable. And if your mattress is older than your youngest kid's high school years, it might be time. You don't have to overhaul everything at once. Pick one thing from what we covered today. Start tonight. Be consistent with it for 2 to 3 weeks, and pay attention to how you feel in the morning. That's it. That's the entry point. Because here's what I want you to take away from this. The people who turn morning back pain around are not the ones who find some magic solution. They're the ones who stop accepting it as normal and start treating it as something that can actually change, because it can. If this was useful to you, subscribe so you don't miss the next one. And if you've got questions or something specific you're dealing with, drop it in the comments. I read them. Take care of yourselves.